Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. If you think you know your partner, think again. We were laughing. Someone had just spilled red wine on a beige rug, and everyone scrambled like it was a bomb. I remember that detail so clearly, the red on beige, how it looked like something you'd see in a crime scene photo. We joked about it. Everyone kept drinking. Music was playing from someone's old Bluetooth speaker that kept glitching. The air smelled like cheap candles and cologne. And I swear to you, 30 minutes before my entire world flipped, I said this sentence to a guy I barely knew. Man, I feel lucky. My wife still looks at me like she did when we first met. Yeah. That sentence aged like milk. It was Reagan and Miles' place. Small circle of friends, no kids running around, just adults pretending we're not tired from life. Lainey, my wife, was in this oversized green sweater that she wears when she wants to look cozy and effortless. I always loved that sweater. I'd bring it to my nose when she wasn't looking, like a complete idiot. Anyway, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I stepped outside to take it. Maybe a wrong number, maybe spam, I don't even remember now. But that call, that stupid, pointless call, it saved me from walking in 1 minute earlier. 1 minute sooner, and I wouldn't have just seen what I saw, I would have heard it too. When I walked back in, no one noticed. They were playing some game about guessing lies or truths. The hallway lights were dimmed. That's probably why they didn't hear me. Or maybe they just didn't care. I heard a sound, a laugh. Low. The kind of laugh my wife only makes when she feels completely safe. Or completely seen. Then I saw it. Her back pressed to the wall. His hands on either side of her. He leaned in. She didn't flinch. Her hands came up to his chest. And she kissed him. Not a drunken peck. Not a clumsy mistake. No. My wife kissed another man with the kind of ease that comes from practice. I didn't breathe. I just watched. I stood there with a half-eaten cracker still in my hand, as if that stupid little snack had anything left to offer me. And the man? The one whose lips were on my wife. Miles. The host of the party. The man whose house I was standing in. The man who'd toasted to friendship 20 minutes earlier while looking me in the eyes. What I saw next. Let's just say, I never touched that green sweater again. I didn't move. Couldn't. It was like my soul had hit a brick wall and left the rest of me paralyzed in the doorway. There was a glass of soda in my hand, already sweating from the condensation, slowly dripping onto the hardwood floor. I don't remember grabbing it. I don't even remember walking back inside. All I know is that 1 second I was on the porch hearing about a dumb car warranty, and the next I was watching my wife lock lips with my supposed friend like I wasn't even on the same planet. The worst part? She didn't look surprised when she finally noticed me. Not shocked. Not panicked. Just mildly annoyed. Like I had interrupted something inconvenient. She didn't pull away in guilt or horror. She didn't slap him and try to explain. She just blinked slowly, tilted her head slightly and said, "Curtis, it's not what you think. It's not what I think. What does that even mean? Was I hallucinating? Did I misinterpret his tongue in her mouth? Was she suddenly performing CPR in the hallway of a wine and cheese game night?" I turned and walked out without a word. The laughter from the living room felt a mile away. No one followed me. Not her. Not him. Not even Reagan, who must have known. How could she not? It was her house. Maybe she was in on it. Maybe it was all just one big joke I hadn't been invited to. I sat in my car for 20 minutes before I realized I was gripping the steering wheel like I was trying to strangle it. The radio was off, but my mind was deafening. I replayed the kiss over and over again in my head. Not like a memory, but like a punishment. My stomach turned every time I saw her hands on his chest in my mind. Every time I remembered the way she smiled into his neck. That wasn't just attraction. That was familiarity. When I finally drove off, I didn't go home. I didn't even know where to go. I pulled into a random gas station and sat there under the buzzing fluorescent lights, staring at the air and water sign like it held some secret answer to my entire collapsing life. I considered calling my sister, but what was I even going to say? Hey, just caught my wife kissing a married man while I was out getting spammed by robots. How's your night? Eventually, I texted Lainey just one word. Why? She didn't respond for 4 hours. And when she finally did, it wasn't an apology. It wasn't panic. It wasn't even remorse. It was, "We need to talk when you calm down." When I calmed down, I stared at those 5 words like they were a slap. I wasn't yelling. I hadn't even raised my voice. I left quietly, like a wounded animal crawling out of the trap it didn't even know it was in. But she still managed to make me the problem. Classic Lainey. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't her first time flipping the blame. It wasn't her first time twisting reality just enough to make me question my own feelings. But it might be the last. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I just sat on the couch in the dark, my mind racing with all the little things I'd ignored over the past few months. Things that only made sense now through the cracked lens of betrayal. The late nights at work. The random giggles while texting. The way she always angled her phone away from me when replying to someone. I had told myself those were nothing, that I was being insecure. But apparently all those knots in my stomach weren't paranoia. They were warnings I failed to listen to. Around 5 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Another text from Lainey. "Are you home?" I stared at it for a long time, then typed, "No, don't want to see you right now." But I never hit send. I deleted it and put the phone face down on the coffee table. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't even know who I was anymore. I'd spent over a decade loving this woman, trusting her, building a life that I thought was real. And now, I felt like a guest in my own story. When morning came, I drove around aimlessly before pulling into the parking lot of an old diner I used to go to in college. I ordered coffee I didn't drink and a plate of pancakes I didn't touch. I just sat there watching the condensation slide down the window as the world went on like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, my marriage was a sinking ship, and I didn't even know where the lifeboats were. Eventually, I went home, not because I was ready, but because I couldn't avoid it forever. Her car was already in the driveway, parked neatly like it had never left. I walked in expecting chaos. Tears, panic, desperate explanations. Instead, I found her sitting calmly on the couch with a mug of tea like it was just another lazy Sunday. "Can we talk now?" she asked, as if she hadn't detonated a bomb in the middle of our life 12 hours ago. I didn't sit. I stood in the doorway like I might still bolt. "Talk," I said flatly. Lainey sighed like I was the one making things difficult. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice cracking despite my best effort. She shrugged. "I was going to tell you. Eventually. I just didn't think you'd see it like that." "You mean I wasn't supposed to catch you?" I asked, almost laughing. "Was that the plan? Keep it quiet until you found the right moment to ruin me?" "No, Curtis," she snapped, finally standing up. "You've been emotionally checked out for years. I've tried to talk to you, but you're always in your head, always doubting yourself, doubting me. You think that's easy to live with?" There it was. The twist. The narrative flip. Suddenly I was the villain. The guy who forced his wife to cheat by being too sensitive, too insecure, to himself. "I've blamed myself for so long," I said quietly. "I thought I wasn't enough. But now I realize you were just waiting for an excuse." She looked at me for a long second, then whispered, "Maybe I was." That single sentence shattered whatever pieces were left of me. There was no fight in her, no regret, just a cold, steady truth. She had stopped loving me, and instead of leaving, she let someone else in. I turned around, walked to the bedroom, and closed the door. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stood there staring at the empty side of our bed, realizing it had probably been empty in more ways than one for a very long time. I didn't leave the bedroom that entire day. Couldn't. It wasn't that I was afraid of Lainey. It was that every second I stayed in the same space with her, I felt like I was suffocating. The air didn't feel real. The walls felt fake. Like everything I thought I'd built was just cardboard scenery. And the silence? It wasn't peaceful, it was heavy. Thick with everything we weren't saying. I heard her moving around the house, opening cabinets, cleaning things that didn't need to be cleaned. At one point, she even had the nerve to hum while loading the dishwasher. Like she'd already moved on. Like I was the one stuck in something that had expired ages ago. By early evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I opened our closet, grabbed an overnight bag, and started stuffing it with whatever I could reach: shirts, socks, a few chargers, whatever. That's when I noticed something strange. My hoodie, the one Lainey always used to borrow, was balled up behind the laundry basket. Out of instinct, I pulled it out, and as I did, something fell from the pocket. A receipt. It was from a hotel, dated 2 weeks prior. The same weekend, she claimed to be visiting her cousin for a girls' trip. 1 king suite, 2 guests. The name of the hotel was scrawled in Sharpie on the bottom corner, like it had been circled and noted. I stared at it, my hands starting to tremble. I walked back into the living room where she was scrolling on her phone, legs curled on the couch like nothing had happened. I held up the receipt. She didn't even blink. "Found this in my hoodie," I said. "Want to try It's Not What You Think again?" Lainey put her phone down with a slow, deliberate sigh. "That wasn't supposed to be in there." "That's what you're going with?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Not even a fake excuse? No panic? No attempt at lying?" "I don't see the point," she said flatly. "You already caught me. What difference does it make now? You said it was just a kiss at the party, that it was a mistake." She smiled bitterly. "I never said it was just a kiss. You assumed that. I never corrected you." The blood drained from my face. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't a one-time moment of weakness. This was a full-blown second life. And I had been so deep in my own insecurities that I never saw the signs for what they were. "So it's been going on for how long?" Lainey didn't hesitate. "About 5 months. 5 months. 5 months of fake smiles, of forced conversations, of pretending to fall asleep beside me, probably texting him under the sheets while I lay next to her, clueless and content in my ignorance. I thought the worst part was seeing her kiss him. It wasn't. The worst part was realizing how easy it had become for her to lie to me. "I need you to leave," I finally said, my voice quiet but firm. "Tonight." She looked surprised. Not devastated. Not angry. Just mildly inconvenienced. "I figured you'd say that," she replied, rising to her feet. "I'll stay at Reagan's for now." Of course. Reagan. The mutual friend who must have known everything and said nothing. The house where this entire nightmare started. I should have seen it, the way they all looked at each other. The way I was never fully in the group anymore. I had become the joke, the outsider in my own marriage. As she packed a small bag and walked out the door without saying goodbye, I realized something that made my stomach churn. She didn't look heartbroken. She didn't even look sad. She looked relieved. I didn't sleep that night either. You'd think after everything, the shock would wear off and exhaustion would take over. But my mind wouldn't shut down. It just kept running loops. The kiss, the hotel receipt, her calm indifference, the way she left without even asking if I was okay. I wasn't. Not even close. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the mug she used that morning, still on the counter like a tombstone. The tea bag string hung limply over the edge. It was peppermint. She always drank peppermint when she was stressed. Apparently, cheating on your husband for 5 months while lying to his face was stressful. Who knew? By mid-morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers, not from her. I'd heard enough of her dispassionate explanations, but from someone else. Someone who saw it all happening and said nothing. Someone who smiled in my face while handing me drinks, while his wife snuck kisses with mine down the hallway. Miles, the friend, the host, the man who toasted to loyalty, who played dumb when I talked about my amazing marriage, like I wasn't setting myself up for a punchline. I drove to his place. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just showed up, hands shaking, barely able to breathe. When he opened the door, he looked surprised, but not surprised enough. "Curtis," he said, blinking slowly. "You okay, man?" I shoved the hotel receipt into his chest. "You want to explain this?" He glanced at it, then exhaled like I was an inconvenience. Like this wasn't a life-ruining moment, but just some awkward neighbor complaint about trash bins. "Look, I didn't want it to go this far," he started, stepping outside and gently closing the door behind him like he didn't want his real life, the one he shared with his actual wife, to hear the consequences of his mess. You didn't want it to go this far? I repeated, laughing in disbelief. You've been sleeping with my wife in the same house you share with yours, and I'm supposed to believe it was just an accident that snowballed? She came on to me, he said, too quickly. It started after that barbecue last spring. You and Reagan were inside setting up drinks. We were alone for maybe 10 minutes. I remembered that barbecue. I had made ribs from scratch. I spilled sauce on my shirt and went in to change. That's all it took? She said you'd grown distant, that you weren't listening anymore, that you didn't touch her like you used to, and I was stupid. No, I cut him off. You were a coward. You had every chance to stop it, to tell me, but you kept going. You invited me into your home while stabbing me in the back. You're not just stupid. You're gutless. He looked away, but not in shame, in discomfort, like I was making things awkward by holding him accountable. Reagan doesn't know, he said quietly, like that somehow made it better. Well, she will, I replied. And trust me, I'm not going to be the one to tell her. You are, today. His face drained of color. Come on, man. No, I snapped. Don't man me. You had your fun. You played your part. Now face it. You can't destroy 2 marriages and expect to walk away with your family intact. I turned and walked back to my car before I said something I'd regret. I was done giving people like him space to breathe while I choked on the smoke of their betrayal. By the time I got home, I had a new message on my phone. From Reagan. 3 words. We need to talk. I stared at Reagan's message for nearly 10 minutes before I even opened it. We need to talk. That phrase carries a weight I'll never be able to ignore again. My instinct said to ignore her, to leave everything behind and just cut the cord. But another part of me, the part still grasping for clarity, for understanding, couldn't walk away without hearing what she had to say. After everything, Reagan was the one person I hadn't confronted yet. And if anyone knew the full scope of the betrayal, it had to be her. She was married to Miles. She hosted the gathering. She smiled at me that night while her husband kissed my wife 2 hallways away. She either knew everything and stayed silent, or she was betrayed too. Either way, I needed to know. I agreed to meet her at a neutral spot, an old bookstore cafe on the edge of town. It was quiet, barely anyone around, and we sat at a back table tucked behind a rack of clearance cookbooks. Reagan arrived wearing dark glasses and a look I didn't recognize. Her usual confidence, the kind she wore like perfume, was completely gone. She looked like someone who hadn't slept, someone whose world had just been rearranged and was still trying to understand the new furniture. She sat down without a word and pulled out her phone. She scrolled for a second, then turned the screen to face me. It was a photo, grainy, dimly lit, of Miles and Lainey sitting together at a bar. Not from the party, from somewhere else, a place I'd never been. A date. I took that a month ago, Reagan said quietly. I followed him when he said he was going to meet a client. I already had suspicions, but I wanted proof. I didn't say anything. I didn't even blink. I just kept staring at the photo, my wife leaning into her affair partner with the kind of comfort you only develop after doing something 100 times. I wanted to confront him, she continued. But I froze. I didn't know what to do. I thought, maybe if I waited, he'd end it, that he'd come clean. But when you walked in on them that night, and I saw your face, I realized I'd been protecting the wrong people. I looked up at her, my voice low. So you knew before the party. She nodded, shame flashing across her face. I didn't know they'd be that reckless. I thought it was over. I told him if I ever saw her near our house again, I'd tell you. But I was bluffing. I didn't think I'd have to follow through. You let me walk into that house blind, I said. You let me stand there and compliment him, eat your food, play games while my marriage was rotting in the next room. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. Not in that moment. I'd spent so long doubting myself, twisting into knots, trying to be the understanding husband. And all the while these people I trusted, were trading silence for comfort. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was selfish. I didn't want my life to fall apart. You were afraid of your life falling apart? I replied. And mine already had. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse and slid it across the table. I unfolded it slowly. It was a printout of a hotel reservation, a future one, dated next weekend. Same hotel as the last receipt. 2 nights, 2 guests, same names. They weren't done, she said. They were planning a getaway, right under our noses. That was it. That was the last drop in a glass already spilling over. I stood up without another word and left the cafe. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. But something inside me, something soft and stupid, finally snapped. I didn't go home after leaving the cafe. I drove past it twice, engine idling at the corner, like my body was hesitant to return to the scene of the crime. That's what it felt like now, a crime scene. Not because someone died, but because something did. Something I had spent 11 years building, watering, nurturing like a fool thinking love was enough. My home wasn't a home anymore. It was a reminder of every missed sign. Every time I'd apologized just to keep the peace. Every time I blamed myself for feeling distant, for being too sensitive, for not being exciting enough. And all that time, she wasn't fixing anything. She was replacing me. I ended up at a hardware store. I didn't have a plan, not really. But clarity doesn't always come with blueprints. Sometimes it just nudges you into action. I bought 3 things. A roll of painter's tape, a thick black marker, and a lockbox. As I paid, the cashier gave me a weird look. I didn't explain. What would I even say? Hey, I just found out my wife and best friend are still sneaking off to hotels, and I need something symbolic to box up the last shreds of my dignity. I drove home like a man on autopilot. The house was dark, silent, empty at least for now. I knew she'd be back soon. She'd left a few things behind when she stormed off to Reagan's, and the way she said, "for now," felt like a threat wrapped in casual language. She still thought I might forgive her, that this could be patched up with enough gaslighting and apologies said too late. I walked straight into the bedroom and opened the top drawer of her nightstand. That's where she kept her special things. Love letters, old photos, cards from birthdays. There were still 2 from me in there, folded carefully, as if they mattered. I took them out. I added the hotel receipts, the photo Reagan gave me, a pair of earrings she only wore around Miles, and the small notebook where she once doodled C+L, like some teenage fantasy was playing out behind my back. All of it went into the lockbox. Then I took the black marker, and on a strip of painter's tape I wrote 5 words. Bold, ugly, honest. In case you forget who you were. I stuck the label to the top of the box, slammed it shut, and left it on her pillow. I didn't text. I didn't leave a note. That box was my final sentence. But I wasn't done. I opened our shared cloud account, the one she had forgotten I had access to. Photos, shared albums, calendar entries. And there it was, an entry for client strategy retreat, on the exact dates from the reservation Reagan had shown me. She hadn't even bothered to hide it. She planned to lie again, to look me in the eyes, kiss me on the cheek, pack a suitcase, and vanish for the weekend with him. I deleted the entry. Then I created a new one on those same dates. It read, "The end." Then, without hesitation, I called my lawyer. I didn't have everything figured out yet, but I knew one thing. This wasn't going to be my life anymore. Not her lies. Not his cowardice. Not my silence. The next day, I sent her a message. There's a box on your side of the bed. Open it. Then ask yourself if there's anything left worth saving. She didn't reply. Not immediately. But when she did, it wasn't the message I expected. She came back 2 days later. No knock. No warning. I heard the front door open and the sharp click of her heels crossing the hardwood floor like she still owned the place. I was sitting at the kitchen table, bills spread out, a pen in my hand, divorce papers half filled. I didn't look up when she entered. I didn't need to. I felt the temperature in the room drop. The tension walked in with her. "I opened the box," she said, her voice quieter than I've ever heard it. "You really kept it all." I kept writing. "You meant it," she added. Still, I didn't look at her. Not yet. Curtis, I didn't think you'd ever actually walk away. That was when I did look up. And I think that's when she finally saw it. The part of me she never expected to lose. The part she'd worn down, manipulated, excused, minimized. The man who, despite everything, still hoped she'd change. But I had changed. I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. You mistook my silence for weakness, I said, steady. But I was just giving you space to choose. And now I'm choosing, too. She nodded slowly. Maybe for the first time in our entire marriage, she had nothing left to say. She left the way she came, quietly. Weeks passed. I finalized the divorce. Reagan did the same. Turns out, she had her own receipts, both literal and emotional. We checked in occasionally, more as survivors than friends. Miles and Lainey? I don't know what happened to them. I didn't ask. I didn't care. What I do know is this. The pain, the betrayal, the humiliation. It didn't destroy me. It woke me up. I started running again. I got back in touch with old friends. I stopped apologizing for my feelings and started listening to them. I stopped assuming the worst in myself just to protect the worst in others. The green sweater? Gone. The lockbox? Burned in a fire pit one chilly Saturday night with Reagan, who brought marshmallows and whiskey and said, "Closure is supposed to be messy." She was right. But healing can be quiet, slow, real. So no, this isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about rediscovering who I am when no one's gaslighting me out of my own truth. And if you're watching this thinking, that could never happen to me, I hope you're right. But if it does, I hope you remember this. Don't beg for clarity. Demand it. And when you see the truth, believe it the first time. Thanks for watching this episode of Reddit Confessions. What's one event in your life that changed everything in an instant? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications.